I'm going to be talking into a microphone because we are webcasting this live. And so I want to start out by thanking everybody here in the audience and everybody in cyberspace who's joining us via the webcast. My name is Mark Raimondi. I'm the Director of Communications for Harris Corporation in Washington, D.C. Before we start, I just want to say that our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of yesterday's metro accident and their families, and we wish those injured in that horrible accident speedy recovery. And they're definitely in our thoughts. Today is the second time we're discussing cyber issues. We did an event at the New York City Press Club last month, and we plan on taking this on the road to other cities down the road. For those of you unfamiliar with Harris, we're a Fortune 500 communications and information technology company with government and civilian customers in about 150 countries around the world. We're honored today to have such distinguished guests who could join us to discuss what the Cyber Czar's first 100 days could look like. You have their impressive bios in front of you, so I'm not going to repeat what's in there. Those of you attending the webcast, those bios are also available on the webcast page. Alphabetically, I'd like to introduce Mr. James Bamford, Mr. Tom Davis, former Congressman of Virginia, and General Dale Myros. Mr. Bamford is one of the most accomplished and respected journals on cyber-related topics. He's the author of several books about the NSA, all of which were on the New York Times bestseller list. And we're very pleased you could fly in from London to join us today. Mr. Davis is a 7-term congressman from Virginia's 11th district. He's now with Deloitte as the director of federal government affairs. He has a reputation when he was on the Hill as a skilled legislator who took on some of the most difficult issues. And he was the key driver. What is causing that? Sorry. He's the key driver of the Federal Information and Security Act of 2002, requiring federal agencies to address cyber risks. And finally, General Myros has 4 decades of federal service, including time as the first Senate-confirmed Chief Information Officer for the U.S. intelligence community. He's a retired Air Force Major General who, while in service, was responsible for some of the Defense Department's most critical networks. And Air Force Academy grad, and he's the current Vice President and General Manager for Harris Corporation for Cyber and Information Security. With that said, Mr. Davis has a plane to catch, so we're going to let him go first. The format will be several minutes of an intro from the legislative, executive branch, and media section, and then we'll open it up to questions. Please wait until the microphone reaches you before you ask a question. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, the good news is whoever the new Cyber Czar is won't have to be Senate confirmed. So once they get named, they don't have to worry about whether they paid their taxes or not. They can get on the ground and move immediately. The real question is how much authority are they going to have? You have a lot of czars up there, a lot of competing interests within the government. What is your ability to deal with all of these stovepipes that have been set up? I mean, every agency head likes to innovate in their own way. They want to put down their footprint, leave their own legacy. Those are very hard to dislodge, but that can be done within the executive branch framework if the president backs them up through OMB circulars, through executive orders, in some cases regulations. What we need to understand is there's going to be legislative initiatives, too, to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. It's going to take legislation from Congress, and if you think it's difficult solving it within the bureaucracy, wait till you get to Congress, because jurisdiction drives the place. I know, of course, I was a full committee chairman in the House. I understand how jurisdiction works. It's a patchwork quilt of jurisdictional overlays, and when you get to the cyber wars, it gets even more complex because every committee claims some semblance of jurisdiction on this. We were able to move through FISMA, through our committee, kind of snuck it through at the point and kept it, wrote the law in such a way that it would stay under our committee's jurisdiction. Other areas wouldn't get a bite of it. I'm afraid, given the complexities of where we are today, you're going to have a number of committees who are going to want a piece of this legislation, whether it relates to privacy, it could relate to FOIA, it could, because a lot of the critical infrastructure is privately owned, gets it into the ambit of the Energy and Commerce Committee. The Science Committee, through the National Science Foundation groups, is going to want to have a say over grants and how government portions this out. As I said, the Government Committee oversees all federal reorganizations. They'll want a good piece of that. The Commerce Committee, as I noted before, is going to want to, they claim anything with an HR in front of it in the House. The Armed Services Committee is clearly going to be front and forward. They had a lot of hearings on this issue before. They think this should be under their ambit, but they run against Homeland Security, who thinks this should be their ambit. And they're going to claim a piece of this legislation and write it. And then you get the intelligence committees in the act and say, oh, no, this is high level, this is intelligence, it ought to be us. And, of course, none of them have any say without the appropriators. The appropriators come in here, and without money, it's hard to get much done. Even now, one of the greatest failings of FSMA was the incongruity you had between the authorizers and the FSMA reports that would come out and appropriations. There was really no incentive from an appropriations point of view to make some of the changes that need to be made. That would exist as this new cyber czar and the administration approach trying to fix this problem. Then you get the financial services committees and the template that they've laid down, because a lot of the innovation that's gone on in cybersecurity has come from financial services industries and how they work through. And finally, you get to the Judiciary Committee. You can't get to the Freedom of Information Act. You can't get to tort reform, the kind of things you need to share information in the private sector without going through judiciary, which is basically owned by the trial lawyers. And so it becomes a very, very complex. Now, one thing I would note in this town is if there's a crisis, things can move pretty quickly. I think we've seen that with the stimulus package. We saw this after the 9/11 Commission reported. Sometimes gridlock can be broken very quickly when an administration decides to do it or when there is a perceived crisis, and everybody can get together pretty quickly and crack the whip. The difficulty right now is that there are so many things going on in Washington, so many crises and aspects of that crisis. It makes it very hard to kind of ferret what is the priority of this with everything else going on. So I hope I've just given you a glimpse into some of the complexities that the administration faces. I applaud them for making this a priority, though, giving it a lot of attention. They're talking to quality people as you move around into some of these critical positions, and I wish them luck.
As a journalist, I'm sort of paid to be cynical, so I'll be very cynical here. When this was announced, when the President announced that he said White House cyber security coordinator would have regular access, quotes, regular access to me. But the problem is, by placing somebody that's pretty far down the totem pole in the bureaucracy, basically placing somebody under two committees. One is the National Security Council, and the other is the Economic Council. You have somebody that's down there. I don't know a real powerful person that would actually take a job that would be kind of that low in the bureaucracy, where you're not only reporting to one committee but another, but the idea of trying to get a paper that you're writing through one committee and then the other committee, and then making all the changes and having to go through those committees again before you even get to the chief of staff of the president. I just don't see how the person is going to have regular access to the president or have very much of a voice if you're that low in the totem pole. Plus, usually the power flows wherever the money flows from, and here I don't see any budget control over the over anything dealing with cyber. It's basically just recommendation, and the president said that if there's a crisis, the person will work in the White House as the crisis coordinator, which I could see, but on a day-to-day basis, it just doesn't seem like the person's going to have much power over the position. Having covered NSA for most of my life, NSA plays a big role here, since that will be the 800-pound gorilla to some degree, since there's, in addition to a discussion of a White House coordinator for cyber, there's also this discussion of a cyber command, and the cyber command is it's been pretty much laid out so far. Looks like the director of NSA will run the cyber command, or else they'll create a new cyber command attached to NSA and take the current director of NSA and put him in charge. So whatever way you're looking at it, the NSA will be largely in charge of the cyber command, although there'll probably be a dotted line to the strategic command in Omaha.